in. That's essentially what these players are now doing and battling throughout the rest of the tournament. So I'm excited. I can't wait to get into this game and see which Pokemon they're going to be bringing in order to fight it out for their sort of tournament lives, essentially. So on Graham's side of the field, we can see the Snorlax and the Incineroar jumping out, and on Eduardo's side, it's the Dragapult and that Rotom Wash.
Yep, I mean, Graham really needed that Snorlax to do a lot more in his previous game, so this is its time to shine, see what it can do, and of course, you know, we've talked about it already today. Can Snorlax deal with Dragapult? I think that's absolutely essential in a number of these matchups. So the onus is on Graham's Snorlax to try and set itself up. Of course, we just watched Eduardo versus James, and the Rotom can do a lot, this Dragapult can do a lot, but in this turn, he's going to switch it out, and a very, very valuable Intimidate following right up from the lead. That's going to be valuable against Incineroar, and of course against the Snorlax. We know from a fact that Graham can only boost his Snorlax a little bit at a time because he's opted for Curse over Belly Drum.
Yeah, but no curses coming out here straight away. The Snorlax is going for a Yawn into the Arcanine that just switched in. Fake Out, of course, coming out from that Incineroar as well, going to stop the Rotom from doing any kind of super effective damage with potentially a Hydro Pump, or even starting to set up with the Nasty Plot.
Yep, I mean, setting up with the Nasty Plot has definitely worked for the Rotom before, so an option there to see if you can get big damage down and guarantee knockouts. Being able to ensure you're knocking Pokemon out is so valuable, and something like the Incineroar, maybe he is going to need a little bit of help to get through it. The boost could help him there. The Yawn, though, something Eduardo is very familiar with. He's been doing it himself, and now we get to see how he plays against it, how he can deal with it when it's used against him.
Yeah, that's true. The Yawn tables have turned on Eduardo. He's switching out his Arcanine so it doesn't go to sleep at the end of the turn, as Rotom does go for the Hydro Pump here, straight into that opposing Incineroar. Just wants to remove it from the field with any pesky Intimidates or Fake Outs later on in the game. Incineroar, though, easily able to take that, goes for the U-turn, does a little bit of chip into the Dragapult, but critically will be in the back now for Graham, so he's able to bring it back in to cause some disruption later on with potentially a Fake Out. I want to know, though, Adam, what this Snorlax is going to do.
Yep, I mean, this is an interesting situation for the Snorlax. It's not really too threatened right now, not too scared of anything on either side of the field, so we'll see exactly what he decides to do, and he's following Edu's lead, even though he doesn't know about it from before. He does know that, hey, yawning Pokemon forces you to switch, and that's strange. We see Edu immediately heading into the menu to say, you know what, I'm not leaving Rotom in to fall asleep and potentially be vulnerable for a few turns. I'm just going to get it right out of here and immediately try and kind of find a better position, try and find an opportunity where he's not getting yawned either.
Yeah, he needs to keep that Rotom safe so that it's in a position where it can apply a lot of pressure to that Milotic. On Graham's side of the field as well, you can see that he's got Yawn and a Hypnosis user there, so really kind of going heavy on the sleep mode. Eduardo does make the switch, brings in the Excadrill as Dragapult goes for the Phantom Force. It just wants to disappear for a little while, and I'm sure we will see it connecting on that Milotic slot into the next turn. Milotic, though, going to go for the setup here, just goes for a Coil. Didn't see itself too threatened in that position. It might have had to take a Thunderbolt from the Rotom, but then it would have gone for a sleep anyway, so this would have been a worthwhile strategy as Dragapult avoids the Yawn. So Snorlax able to go for another Yawn target on the next turn. Eduardo not forced to switch anyone out, though.
Yeah, that's a really nice way to kind of break that yawn. It's kind of soft lock, right? Like, you're not completely locked out of the game, you've still got a turn to do something, but it does put the pressure on. Of course, Phantom Force taking you off the field, meaning he's able to break that really nicely. That said, though, the Coil is going to help out that defense boost, and it's certainly going to help out against the Phantom Force, and does mean that there's some potential for more sleep shenanigans. Looks like Excadrill's in the business of boosting itself, though. Just a commitment to its attack there, and the Hypnosis doesn't connect even after the Coil boost. The Yawn, though, absolutely does. Might put a bit of pressure on it after it's decided to Swords Dance.
Yeah, Graham really going for kind of the double sleep there. Sabra is Milotic. It really needs to get that second Coil up to ensure that Hypnosis is going to be as accurate as possible. The Excadrill, though, going for that Swords Dance, quite a risky move in front of two Pokemon that you know can put you to sleep, but maybe because the Snorlax had targeted the Dragapult with the Yawn the previous turn, thought that it was going to be safe, thinking that Snorlax would target that slot again, but no, instead it's Excadrill that took that attack.
Yeah, I mean, Excadrill might just want to stick around, try and get an attack off, might just want to switch out and save itself for later. It's kind of galling when you get that boost up and you're forced to change your play immediately after. Certainly interesting, certainly something that, you know, Eduardo's going to be aware of playing this team more and more. The commitment to sleep, though, is a very defensive play from Graham, really not putting down too much offensive pressure right now, but he is forcing the switches, and Rotom comes in place of that extra drill. Those boosts from Sword Stance immediately taken away, and we're going to get our first Dynamax of this game.
Yeah, it looks like Graham is going to be Dynamaxing up that Milotic, thinking Hypnosis isn't the way to go. Maybe he doesn't trust in it so much here, but also going to be able to deal out some good Water-type damage, and that could help out if Ludicolo is potentially the Pokemon, the fourth Pokemon in the back there for Graham. If you can get the Rain up, that's going to help out later on. Dragapult, however, just going to fire its Dreepies across, going to do some damage here into the Snorlax. And into the Milotic, of course, taking it down to now below 50% and proccing that berry. So Milotic able to regain itself a little bit of health, but now no longer has access to that going forward. That could put it into a tricky spot against this Rotom. Milotic, though, is going to go for that Max Geyser, going to target into that Rotom slot, not do too much damage, of course. That is definitely not the target that you want to be able to hit. The Excadrill would have been definitely better there for Graham to be able to target into, as Snorlax does. What Snorlax has done consistently, goes for the Yawn, this time managing to connect it onto that Dragapult.
Yeah, the Dragapult, not Phantom Forcing, is available to get Yawns. And I think that Rotom switch, fantastic by Edu. Yes, you did have the boosts on Excadrill. It would have been really nice to attack with those boosts, but he wasn't safe. He knows how chaotic the Yawn can be if he lets it get into play, so he just switches it out, and a fantastic option on his team in Rotom to say, you know what, I think your Milotic's going to be going after this Excadrill. I'll bring in Rotom. I'm feeling pretty fine. Of course, the Rotom has options to fire back at this Milotic, being an electric type itself, and if it does decide that later on it wants to potentially Hydro Pump on its side, hey, there's some rain set up for him now that he can start taking advantage of.
Exactly, you're going to get the cheeky Water-type boost by that Rain on the field, and we've seen the accuracy of some of these Rotom washes here with the Hydro Pump. It could be really good for Eduardo. Switches in the Excadrill though, so hopefully that's not going to be accidentally taking a Max Geyser, and can put itself into a good position to pressure going forward, as Graham does reveal that it is the Ludicolo, switches it out his Snorlax so that he can bring the speedy little Pineapple onto the field, as Rotom goes for a Thunderbolt into the Max Guard on that Milotic, just protecting itself so that potentially Ludicolo can remove that Rotom from the field, so that Milotic doesn't have to worry so much.
Yep, and honestly, Ludicolo coming in is really nice for him. He's got Swift Swim in play. There's not an immediate way for Eduardo to switch that up. He is, of course, going to have to take something from the Ludicolo first, which is certainly going to be interesting. And now, you know, he said, this Rotom is a bit of an issue. I don't know how to, you know, deal with it. Gets the Ludicolo in, got that grass typing, one of the only ways to hit Rotom reliably. That said, though, I think there's a lot of pressure right now on the Ludicolo to do as much as he can.
Yeah, Ludicolo as well does get access to Fake Out, so that could be another option he could have gone for. Instead, was just going a double here, actually, into that Rotom, maybe thinking Eduardo was going to switch it out. Eduardo, though, going for some damage here with the Excadrill, as the Max Geyser comes out from the Milotic, going to go straight into the Excadrill, pick up the big KO there as well.
Yeah, I think the Scald towards the Rotom is certainly interesting, maybe expecting a switch on that turn. Didn't decide to Fake Out or anything, so he did have to take the damage from Earthquake. It's still good damage, not as much as it would have been with the Sword Stance boost earlier in the game, but hey, it's still some damage down before you get knocked out as well. That said, that is going to be the end of Dynamax for Milotic, and quite honestly, not putting down all that much damage throughout those 3 turns. Getting a knockout, that's not bad, but not as much as some of the other Dynamax kind of plays we've seen in this tournament already, and this gives Edu the chance to Dynamax at his leisure, really.
Exactly, I think the one critical thing that Milotic did was set up the Rain for that Ludicolo, but as you said, Eduardo still has access for his Dynamax, and he could potentially put himself in a position to set up something like the Max Lightning that could really pick up the KO against that Milotic and then help out his partner Pokemon from those Yawns that the Snorlax is pressuring with as well. So Eduardo's got a couple of options here, but at the same time, Graham could now go on the defensive and potentially make some switches so that he can apply pressure back to Eduardo's team in return. He's got the 4-3 Pokemon advantage. It's just whether Eduardo can capitalize on it or not.
Yeah, and honestly, I do kind of like the way that, you know, Graham's bought the Ludicolo. It's just being asked to do so much, right? You want it to deal with the Rotom, it needs to use a Grass-type attack in that direction, and Eduardo realizing that says, you know what, I'm going to Dynamax my Rotom, so I'm not that easy to knock out. It's also probably an option to deal with the Dragapult as well. You know, there's so many moves that Ludicolo can learn, many of them Ice type as well. His Ice Beam, though, just saying, you know what, the Dragapult's the thing that scares me. I'm going to try and deal with that right now.
Yeah, I like that as well, because Dragapult could easily go away with Phantom Force as well and just keep sort of being a deviant there on the field, avoiding attacks and still applying some damage. Not very effective damage here going into the Rotom, as it does indeed go for that Max Lightning. Milotic will need a little bit more than that berry it already ate to be able to survive that. We'll pick up the nice KO and also, of course, bring that electric terrain here onto the field. So that will just stop the partner Pokemon on Eduardo's side, if it is grounded, from falling asleep.
Yeah, no yawn shenanigans, or not as many yawn shenanigans in this game anymore, with the Max Lightning coming through, changing the terrain. Really nice adaptation and getting the knockout. I mean, the Milotic stood no chance. It wasn't Dynamaxed anymore. It was easily going to get knocked out. We are going to see Graham bring back his Incineroar. Not the ideal place for Incineroar, if I'm quite honest with you.
Yeah, Incineroar's not going to appreciate being here. It's going to take the Intimidate and then also facing down against Rotom Wash. Particularly when in Dynamax form you can't be hit by Fake Out and flinched. So Incineroar really is sitting very vulnerable here, unless Ludicolo is able to get some kind of amazing critical hit against that Rotom. Incineroar's going to really struggle. It might need to potentially switch out, bring the Snorlax back in, and again Arcanine here is able to just sit and do some snarls, maybe start whittling away the damage output of that Ludicolo.
Yeah, I mean, this Ludicolo's got so much to do, right? Again, both the Pokemon and Eduardo's side of the field are Pokemon that this Ludicolo wants to be targeting. And, you know, there's not many options, particularly on a Ludicolo, that could really help you on this one. Snorlax comes in place of the Incineroar, though, seeing that he might have a problem, especially with the Dynamax Rotom in play. And Ludicolo starts off with a Leaf Storm, not the most common move on Ludicolo, and it takes the knockout on this Dynamax Rotom. That is a lovely adaptation in team building for Graham that he is able to pick up a crucial knockout with.
That was so critical. A lot of people opt for Energy Ball over Leaf Storm on their Ludicolo, and Energy Ball would not have got the KO in that situation. You needed to have Leaf Storm to get that extra damage. So like you said, really good team building there from Graham. This really was a critical turn for him. He needed to get rid of that Rotom, and he has succeeded. And now Eduardo's got his Arcanine sitting in a pretty awkward position against both of these Pokemon. You can see him considering the forfeit here. That was an amazing end to the game there by Graham, revealing that Leaf Storm. What a critical move choice to have put on your Pokemon over the more popular Energy Ball. He needed that Leaf Storm in order to get the KO, and that's really what sealed the game up for him there.
Yeah, and there's something to be said about knowing the metagame and knowing what kind of threats you're going to be dealing with. I mean, I don't think Dynamax Rotom is one of the most common, but there's so many big water types that you have to watch out for. If you've only got limited turns, Ludicolo is not the bulkiest Pokemon, it's not going to stick around. You've only got limited turns with the rain, you say, you know what, I'm just going to get this threat off the field, I'm going to land a Leaf Storm, and he uses it kind of so sparingly. It does of course drop your special attack, you do have to be careful with it, but if it's getting you key knockouts on something like your opponent's Dynamax, hey, that's absolutely worth it.
Yeah, like you said, it can be a really critical moment when you're team building. If you're maybe putting a lesser used move onto your Pokemon for a specific strategy, like you said, there's so many water type Dynamaxes in the game, it could be what you need in order to pick up that KO, and that's exactly what we've seen. And I'm really happy for Graham that maybe putting that slightly unusual tech onto his team really did pay off for him, and he could use it at a really pivotal part in the game. I mean, the whole way through the game, his strategy was really solid. Like, he commanded things from the beginning, going for the sleep and constantly making Eduardo switch, and then by setting up the rain and bringing in Ludicolo, he then went on the offensive.
Yeah, and I think there's something to be said about the way he's put that team together, right? We've talked about Swift Swim being so prevalent. It's been around for absolutely years. Even I remember playing with it, so dates myself a little bit, but it's been around. It's nothing new, but we've got these new tools available to us. With Dynamax, with the Max Geyser, kind of being able to say, you know what, I'm going to Max Geyser you, and I'm going to get damage down, and I'm going to set up Rain, then I'm going to bring in Ludicolo and capitalize on that. It's really smart team building to look at these new tools. You know, this is the first year that we've had Dynamax available to us, and build teams around that. You don't now have to have a Pokemon with Drizzle on your side of the field. That's your only way to set up the rain. You've got other options.
Yeah, it was really cool to see that strategy executed in Game 1. I wonder if he'll be doing it in Game 2. I'm excited. I want to be able to jump straight into this game and see exactly what's going on between these players and whether they'll make any adjustments. If I was Eduardo, I'd maybe want to get that electric terrain set up a little bit sooner so that Snorlax can't sit and apply pressure with Yawn. But Snorlax is a piece on the field here for Graham. He's paired up with his Incineroar, and Eduardo paired up with that Dragapult.
Yeah, I think this Dragapult's actually in quite a dicey position. This is probably one of the few times I see a Dragapult on the field and think, ooh, this one's not for you, mate. Time to leave. But it does mean, you know, we could just have an exchange of the yawns. We could have this really strange matchup where both players just pass yawns to either side of the field and keep things going. So it's going to be crucial, I think, if that is going to happen, for Eduardo to find that opportunity to get Rotom in, get that electric terrain down, and start causing problems. That said, Graham feels comfortable right now to just land that fake out, isn't worried about any Dynamax. It looks like both trainers are just going to be going pretty much on the offensive where they can.
Yeah, I mean, one way to stop kind of the Yawn shenanigans on both sides of the field is to hit one with a fake out. So Yawn can't come out from Eduardo's side. And interestingly enough, Graham's own Snorlax has decided to not go for that move on this occasion and instead go for that curve. So just going to boost its defense up a little bit. Maybe going to stop it from taking so much chip damage from the Dragon Dance from that Dragapult. And again, can now apply a little bit more offensive pressure going forward. Maybe Graham's turned the tables and he doesn't want to keep it as kind of a Yawn user consistently. He maybe wants to go on the offense as well with the Snorlax.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Snorlax certainly now a bigger threat, particularly than Eduardo's. Eduardo has no boost on his side of the field, so his Snorlax is a little bit behind the pace. When you're mirroring these Snorlaxes, you never want to be the first person to miss a boost, be it a belly drum, be it a curse. You want to be keeping up with them and being able to keep applying that pressure. This Dragapult still not feeling too good about its position, especially after that curse, and just switching out, saying, you know what, I have an option to deal with at least half of that curse, the attack boost, and I'm just going to have to bring my own Intimidate in.
Yeah, I really like that play by Eduardo. Potentially the Snorlax on Graham's side could be running Darkest Lariat, and that's something that the Dragapult really doesn't want to take at all. The Incineroar jumping in out of there as well, quite wisely timed as it just took the Intimidate from the Arcanine. And again, it gives Graham the opportunity to now bring in another Pokemon. He's bringing in that Milotic Pokemon we saw do so well for him previously, setting up the rain. And it's now going to apply, obviously, that pressure going forward to that Arcanine. The Snorlax on Graham's side, though, is going to have to take the Yawn, and as we said, it's going on the offensive, goes for the double edge into the opposing Snorlax. Thanks to the Intimidate, though, from the Arcanine, it was back at neutral, so it really didn't deal the damage that Graham was hoping it would. Yeah,
both players getting an adjustment, and I think, honestly, the adjustment was essential for Edu. He had to bring that Arcanine in, he had to start answering that curse. Really smart, though, by Graham to bring that Milotic. He does get the advantage of switching after the initial part of the turn. You know, he did see that the Arcanine had come in, so with his U-turn, he then gets to look and say, you know what, I'm going to bring in Milotic here and start applying pressure. That said, both trainers keeping up that switching. That Rotom coming in is going to be huge against the Milotic, and the Incineroar coming back in is going to keep Eduardo's Snorlax really not offensive at all.
Yeah, exactly. The Rotom coming in here as well can start applying some big pressure if it does want to maybe Dynamax, or maybe this could be the opportunity to start setting up with a nasty plot. But you have to worry about where the fake out's going to come from that Incineroar potentially in the next turn. Yawn from Snorlax, though, does go into the Milotic this time. So again, now Milotic is the Pokemon that's going to be sort of forced to switch. And I think it's interesting, Adam, that we had leads with both Snorlaxes, and it turns out that there really is a very predominant Yawn user out of the two, and it could have gone either way.
Yeah, I think both trainers obviously have access to it. We've seen it from both of them. But Edu, knowing how powerful Yawn is, I think what's interesting here is that he has the option of Dynamaxing his Rotom and starting to deal as much damage as possible. But he doesn't want to do that yet. He needs to hold off a little bit, and I think he wants to make sure that he can play this Yawn game nice and early on. Graham clearly still scared of this Snorlax and its Yawns, making sure he's been fake-outing it both times. His Incineroar has that access to fake out, but while he does that, that's going to be a nasty pot boost for the Rotom, and that means he can do the damage required to get knockouts without having to Dynamax.
Yeah, Eduardo really capitalising there on the fake out going into its partner Snorlax, able to get the nasty plot. Graham maybe thinking that Rotom was the obvious choice, would maybe go for Protect, so decided to fake out the Snorlax and switch up his ball positioning a little bit. But instead, Rotom is now boosted, and that is going to be applying a lot of pressure against the rest of Graham's team.
Yeah, this Rotom could become a bit of a handful. I like that he's gone Thunderbolt, maybe thinking the Milotic was going to switch in to take a potential Hydro Pump there. There's at least some kind of answer from Graham saying, yeah, you know, I don't like Nasty Plot. I'm going to have to start landing these Snarls from Incineroar rather than the Arcanine. But he's still not able to stop Eduardo's Snorlax landing those yawns. It looks like it's going to be a trade of yawns from both Snorlaxes onto each other as well.
Yeah, both these Snorlaxes, they're putting in some work. You know, we're a couple of matches deep into the tournament now, and they're getting a little drowsy. So it might be time for both these trainers to switch them out, change up their ball positioning once again. And I think that's been the key thing from both of these games so far in this set is both these players are constantly having to switch things up and think several turns ahead about where they want to have their ball positioning. Rotom, though, still looking to be in a really strong position, although the reveal of the Snarl on the Incineroar shows that it's not as safe as it thought without those nasty plot boosts. It might need to get another one up later in the game to apply really great pressure against the rest of Graham's team.
Yeah, when you've got the 2 stages, you feel really, really good about being able to knock pretty much anything out if you hit it super effectively. With just the 1 stage, you're still kind of, you know, not quite there, particularly on something that's naturally quite bulky. Of course, Eduardo knows exactly how Yawn works, a fan of it himself, saying, I'm going to get that out, and Graham forced to do the same thing. But what I think would be key here is if Eduardo can make a call on what's coming in that slot. And we do see Rotom thunderbolting, and he's going to land it. He's going to call that Milotic switch and do big damage on its way in.
Yeah, fantastic play there from Eduardo, calling the Milotic coming in, making it eat its Citrus Berry, and sort of weakening it as a potential Dynamax later on in the game. You know, the more reduced health, the less you want to Dynamax, as you may not be able to get through all 3 of those critical turns. Graham, again, though, switching up the ball positioning here as well. Maybe going to bring his Snorlax back in so that it can start applying some more yawn pressure and getting back to doing what it was doing previously. But definitely catching that Milotic has really put Eduardo into a sort of offensive driving seat now.
Yeah, that Milotic, you know, just above half, has had to consume its berry to get there as well. So not the easiest situation to play around. And it's kind of interesting, right? Rotom's on the field, still not Dynamaxed on either side, neither player really going for that. But, you know, if Eduardo's the one who's not yawning anymore, he probably feels fine trying to weave a potential Max Lightning in. That said, he can buy a little bit of time. He's not forced or obliged at all to do that until he needs that extra damage. And he's going to be able to just keep dealing damage. That's a critical hit on Dragon Darts, bringing Snorlax into range to consume his berry. Brings him back nice and healthy. But that damage on Milotic leaves it in the red. It's got no more recovery, and it's going to be asked a lot, not enough.
Those little Dreepies putting in the work, doing some strong damage against the Graham's side of the field. Milotic actually going to be KO'd by the follow-up Thunderbolt there from the Rotom, as Snorlax is able to go for the Yawn, targeting into that Dragapult. But again, Eduardo, with all of his Pokemon remaining, does still have the switching potential. And thanks to the critical hit that the Dragon Darts did to that Snorlax, is putting it into quite a precarious position. If Rotom's maybe able to deal out some big damage, it could potentially be picking up a KO. But the savior of game 1 for Graham is the Ludicolo. It's back on the field, and again, this is a Pokemon that can threaten both Dragapult and Rotom with some super effective moves.
Yeah, the difference here right now, though, is there's no rain up for this Ludicolo, and it's very difficult to get it into a position to do exactly what you want when you don't have rain. Now the only one in control of if rain goes up is going to be Eduardo. You know, he's the one with access to Max Geyser. He's the one who could do that, and if he doesn't go for that at all, hey, he's not going to give that to the Ludicolo. So Ludicolo is going to have to take damage before it's given the opportunity to fire back. That said, we're finally going to see a Dynamax in this game. Both trainers holding off on it a little bit, but this time the Dragapult gets the benefit of it because it has been doing so much damage.
Yeah, Dragapult really wants to go right onto the offensive here. And if it can turn its flying type move, Fly, which is normally a 2-turn attack, into a max move where it can do damage straight away and apply a lot of damage onto that Ludicolo, then Dynamax really is the optimal way to go here. But Ludicolo wanting to get itself Dynamax as well so that it gets that extra HP and might be able to withstand some of these attacks a little bit better, I think is a wise choice here from Graham. And he can set up his own rain if he wants to by going for a Max Geyser.
Yeah, he's forced to Dynamax to be able to take this max airstream. It's going to be a whole lot of damage going down, and speed boosts actually one way to try and answer the Swift Swim if it comes into play. That said, though, you know, it'd be great for him to Max Geyser and try and land that damage. He's not given the opportunity, though. He didn't have Swift Swim up. The combination of attacks from Dragapult and Rotom says, hey, I'm not even going to afford you the opportunity to do that.
Yeah, I mean, you can really see there what Graham was going to do. And you saw the double edge coming out from the Snorlax as well. Maybe thinking that the Dragapult was going to switch out, but instead going for the Dynamax and double up into the Ludicolo, I think was the wise option here. Although you are sleeping through your Dynamax turns, removing that Pokemon from the field, that did apply a lot of pressure. And like you said as well, Adam, he can get the rain up and then he's sitting really, really well. He manages to switch the ball position and you need to prevent that from happening. The only way to do that is to double up into it using that max airstream. So I think the sleep is worth it there for the turn that Eduardo got.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, being able to get the knockout on Ludicolo is key, and it leaves Graham in this kind of precarious situation, right, where he's only got 2 Pokemon remaining, neither of them the most naturally huge offensive threat. Of course, you know, they do have access to deal some damage. The sleep might give the Snorlax some time to set up, but it might be too little too late, with Eduardo still able to rotate through 4 Pokemon to try and deal with these.
Yeah, Snorlax going for the curse here, just boosting up its defense against that Dragapult. Of course, lowering its speed doesn't really matter too much. It likes to be the slowest thing on the field anyway, and Dragapult is staying asleep for the time being. It allows Snorlax the opportunity to now go for maybe some Yawns into that partner Pokemon slot, whereas Incineroar, if it is packing a Dark type, we know it's got Snarl, but if it's packing a more sort of offensive move, it can go for that safely into the Dragapult, or could just keep going for a Snarl here and whittle away at the special attack of the Rotom.
Yeah, I mean, the Rotom's still going to be dealing good damage, though. That Incineroar's dangerously low already. It does land the Snarl on both sides of Eduardo's field. Dragapult and Rotom lowered special attacks. This is going to be pretty annoying. And the Snorlax getting the right target this time with the double edge on Rotom. And a little knockout there. But there's still, even after a big knockout like that, still a Pokemon advantage for Edu.
Yeah, exactly. And Dragapult is going through these sleep turns. You know, if Graham's not able to pick up the KO in the next turn or two, then Dragapult is eventually going to wake up and be able to apply a lot more offensive pressure back on the field. Arcanine as well coming in to help, almost the perfect Pokemon here at this stage. Going to go and lower the attack on both the Snorlax and the Incineroar, both predominantly physical attackers. Dragapult, of course, going to go back down to its normal size here, but if it is able to wake up, maybe go for that Dragon Darts, it will easily pick up the KO against that Incineroar and deal some good damage to Snorlax in return.
Yeah, I mean, being able to pick up a knockout and deal damage to the other side is the joy of spread moves, right? There's nothing on the field that means both have to target one, so Dragon Darts could be great here, and he stays asleep. It's not going to come through on this turn, but the Arcanine probably feeling pretty good about itself, not too threatened right now, and able to make the Snorlax a lot less threatening with a nice Will-O-Wisp connecting there.
Yeah, exactly. Just going to burn that Snorlax. Snarl comes out and critically actually avoids the Dragapult. That's the Pokemon that really needs to hit for that super effective damage. As Snorlax goes for that double edge, thanks to the burn, Arcanine is really able to survive that. And I think, actually, with the recoil and the burn damage, Snorlax took more damage from that move than Arcanine did.
Yeah, I mean, the damage output is just so low now, and we go back to the discussion. Do you belly drum or do you curse? It's going to take a lot of turns cursing to make up for that. Dragapult finally wakes up, though. It's been asleep for a long time. I forgot it could attack. Picks up the knockout with Dragon Darts. On Incineroar, no doubt there. And we're going to see how much it can land on this Snorlax. It's not that much, but it's still, you know, a nice way to start wearing it down with the burn, with the recoil, with the Dragon Darts. Yeah, this Snorlax is being asked way too much of it.
Yeah, exactly. Snorlax is here on the timer and as well going for those double edges, going to be taking some damage in recoil. It's pretty much a timer here for Graham. So Eduardo going to be able to take back this game too. And I think it was very interesting actually how Eduardo was able to adjust and go a little bit more on the offense, whereas Graham was the one on the back foot. You know, he didn't get the rain up with that Milotic.
Yeah, even though both players, you know, managed to kind of slow the game down early on with the yawn and that kind of forced switching that they had, Graham wasn't able to execute the Milotic Ludicolo strategy the same way he'd like to, as he did in game number 1, and that really put him behind. Eduardo making a fantastic decision to allow his Dragapult to go to sleep in exchange for knocking out a Dynamax Ludicolo. It's a tough value proposition to assess, but in that case, it was exactly the correct decision, knowing that without the rain, the Ludicolo couldn't do anything, and, you know, it's always very difficult to come back in a match where you say, you know what, my Dynamax Pokemon got knocked out as soon as it Dynamaxed, and you got 0 turns of value out of those boosted stats and more powerful attacks.
It's really hard to recover from the momentum of that as well. Sort of, if you Dynamax your Pokemon, you tend to be thinking you're in a really strong position. You know, you're going to be able to deal like some offensive pressure or change some stats that are going to really help you out in the next turn or with your partner synergy. And the moment it Dynamaxes, if it then suddenly goes right back down into its Pokeball, it can be quite demoralizing. And it's that situation of, oh goodness, what do I do next? Like, I've just lost my Dynamax Pokemon, I have to readjust. And Edo was really able to apply the offensive pressure there quite masterfully.
Yeah, I mean, finding that opportunity and saying, hey, this is the turn where I'm going to swing the game in my favor. He also just has such a guaranteed end game with that Will-O-Wisp on Snorlax. It was really kind of watching Graham try and hope for a critical hit or something to get him through at the end, but wasn't enough. And I think that middle of the game when, again, we talk about it with, you know, Edu's style of play, while they kind of take these early defensive turns, that moment where he breaks from that cycle and says, okay,
yes,
I've got another move available, I've got something else I can do here. Really nice to see him execute that perfectly and tie up the series. So we are getting a game 3 between Edu and Graham.
Exactly, and game 3 is always most critical because it ultimately, particularly for these players in the losers bracket, it is their win and in. They have to win this game to stay in the tournament, otherwise they're out. And that's a different kind of mindset going into this. You know, you've got no more fallbacks, you're in the losers bracket, you've lost that one game that you can't lose, and now it's going to go to the game 3, so every single turn counts. And I think one thing we've seen really strongly in games 1 and 2 is it can take one turn, whether it is setting up the rain for your Ludicolo in the back, or whether it is breaking from that switching upon being yawned, that can really change the game. So it's going to be interesting to see if the same dynamic happens in game 3.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a while as well since kind of status conditions have been as prevalent as this. I mean, Yawn, it's kind of awkward, right? There's moves that put you to sleep immediately without access to some of those staples. Yawn is the choice now, and I like the way that it plays, and I like the way that Yawn says, hey, I'm going to try and get you to sleep, but I'm going to give you the opportunity to leave the field. If you don't leave the field, you're going to go to sleep. If you do, I get like a free shot to call what you're doing. I get a free chance to call that switch and deal huge, potentially super effective damage in some instances as well.
And the other thing with Yawn is you don't have to worry about it missing, unlike Hypnosis, so you kind of get that little bit of reassurance from clicking that button. Togekiss on the field though for Eduardo, gonna go for a Protect here, no redirection, potentially leaving the Dragapult exposed, but instead, knowing that Fake Out coming into that slot, just wisely protects against it. Dragon Darts coming out from Dragapult once again. We've seen Eduardo opt for this on many an occasion just to start getting some chip damage through onto Graham's team and start whittling away at them towards that in-game situation. Snorlax going for a Yawn here onto that Dragapult, so potentially Eduardo's now in a situation where he could switch that Dragapult out and have the Togekiss maybe go for some redirection, or even this could be a turn to Dynamax it, get that Misty Terrain up on the field, and then you don't have to worry about your grounded Pokemon going to sleep from Yawn.
Yeah, but I mean, at the same time, we see, obviously, Edu in the menu there. The Dynamax, is something he's been so careful with in both games, and I think he's really looking for a key opportunity to deal with that. Rotom just applies so much pressure to something like this Incineroar, and Togekiss feels comfortable this turn, says, you know what? I'm just going to Dazzling Gleam. I'm just going to try and deal as much damage as possible. But once again, Graham gets the opportunity to adjust his board with a U-turn. He gets the opportunity to adjust his board kind of after seeing Eduardo's manual switch at the beginning of the turn.
Yeah, Togekiss also gets the critical hit there from the Dazzling Gleam onto Snorlax, and Snorlax kind of has a choice here. It could either target the slot it previously yawned in, predicting the switch, but then that means that Togekiss is able to keep going for these Dazzling Gleams, and if it keeps getting some critical hits, then it's going to be able to whittle away this Snorlax, so you might want to target this Togekiss on the field, and that's exactly what that Snorlax has done.
Yeah, and I actually kind of like this selection of Ludicolo to come in nice and early for Graham. As we saw in game number 2, it wasn't safe when it came in before. He was kind of forced to bring it in, but right now, against Togekiss Rotom, it's a little bit better. There's no immediate threats to it, or there are some, but it's kind of a commitment, and the fact that the Yawns on the Togekiss kind of reduces that threat. You can say, hey, you can try that play again, but you are going to go to sleep, and Togekiss definitely not as offensive as some of the other choices, like this Dragapult.
Exactly, it does leave Graham free to Dynamax up that Ludicolo and maybe go for that Max Geyser straight away, set up his own rain. He doesn't really feel threatened by any of the Pokemon on Eduardo's side, and I feel like that's exactly what we're going to see happening here. Again, there's a lot of mind games coming out from that Ludicolo. It could go for this strategy, or at the same time, it could go straight for that Leaf Storm into that Rotom, particularly if the Rotom's on Dynamax. That's going to deal some huge damage. But I think in the long term, setting up the rain is definitely optimal there for Graham. Snorlax is going to have to take a Thunderbolt, but thankfully it has got the berry in its back pocket, so it's able to regain a little bit of health, so that it can keep going for Yawn throughout the rest of this game, as Ludicolo goes for that Max Geyser. So not only is going to deal some really good damage into that Dragapult that switched and taking it down to over 50% damage, even though it's not very effective, it now manages to set up the rain. So Ludicolo is going to be super speedy, and its water type moves are going to be boosted by this rain.
Yeah, I mean, Ludicolo's put itself in a great position here, finding an opportunity to attack into the Pokemon switching in. Yeah, Dragapult's not the ideal target, but Dragapult, not the bulkiest of Pokemon at times, and that is going to do a lot of damage, even though it resists it fantastically. The Ludicolo going after the Snorlax certainly helps Ludicolo's cause as well, meaning it's taken minimal damage on the way in, and could be putting itself in a fantastic position. Eduardo switching around. That Arcanine's an interesting choice.
Yeah, Arcanine coming in here could potentially fall victim to something like the Max Geyser, but if the Rotom was in place, you're probably going to see the Grass-type Max move come out here, Max Overgrow, but instead it's going to be the Max Geyser coming out from Graham's Ludicolo here, going to go into that Dragapult once again. Not able to pick up the KO here, as it did of course protect, so Arcanine managing to get in pretty safely here, as Snorlax just again goes for another Yawn. So Arcanine going to be in that position where it maybe has to switch out on the next turn in order to not go to sleep. But then again, Eduardo would then be bringing in one of his Pokemon to take a max move from the Ludicolo.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting here is, you know, it's a bold switch from Eduardo, but he's thinking, you know, oh, he's going to throw an Ice-type move or something at this Dragapult, just protects it and says, I can probably take it through Protect. So he's really trying to slow the game down, I think. You know, there's only so much that Ludicolo can do. It does only have one more turn in its Dynamax form as well, and if Eduardo can get through that, then he's going to be in a great position to kind of retaliate with a Dynamax of his own. This Arcanine put itself out on the field, tried to bait in one of those big Max Geysers, and it looks like it might have got exactly what it wanted, as this Rotom's going to take that not too comfortably, but it's not going to get knocked out.
I think the critical thing here is Eduardo's played so defensively that not a single max move that Graham has set out has done super effective damage. All the Pokemon have been able to take it relatively well, and as well, we know that it's packing the Ice Beam, so going for sort of the Ice-type move there could pick up a KO, but then you get rid of the rain, and that's something that Ludico really doesn't want. It wants to keep the rain up here on the field. Rotom is going to be able to hang out on the field for another turn here. It's able to survive the damage, and Ludicolo goes back down to its Undynamax form without actually having picked up any KOs. Like, Eduardo does have reduced health in his Pokemon, but they're still in the game.
I mean, yeah, I think that's absolutely key that you touch on that. But Ludicolo's great for, you know, I think what makes Ludicolo so special is it has access to kind of those staples. It has a water type, an ice type, and a grass type attack. But because he had to Dynamax that, he doesn't have the option to just start throwing ice beams around willy-nilly, and I think that's why Game 1 was a little bit better with Milotic setting up the rain, so Ludicolo can stay in its base form, but still deal that damage very, very, very quickly. So certainly an interesting kind of mix-up from Graham that might have made things a little bit more difficult for him.
Oh, and Ludicolo as well. Unfortunately, he's going to be removed from the field, but a very powerful Phantom Force from the Dragapult. It targeted into the protect of the Rotom as Darkest Lariat comes out from the Snorlax, gonna pick up the KO against that Dragapult, but I think critically Dragapult did its job here. It picked up the KO against that Ludicolo in the rain. It's such a threat, particularly against that partner Rotom there as well with that Leaf Storm. You just wanted to remove it from the field, and I think it was a really good trade there for Eduardo.
Yep, I think that's a fantastic deal for him there. You know, Dragapult's taken out one of the most offensive threats on Graham's side of the team. We've seen Snorlax, we've seen the Incineroar, not always the most offensive. And interestingly, Graham has the Milotic in the back. He's got it there. You know, he could have been setting up Hydro Vortex with that, but he saved it for later in the game, maybe thinking, you know what, I'm going to need to get some stuff going to sleep if I'm going to be able to get through this game.
Yeah, exactly. And Milotic there doesn't want to take any electric type moves from the Rotom. But again, you've got that setup there from Graham, like you've said. You've got Hypnosis user Milotic and Yawn user Snorlax. So potentially, Graham's strategy here could be to just put Eduardo's Pokemon to sleep, keep making him do a lot of defensive switches so that you can call the switches and start dealing some big damage. But Eduardo now going to go for the Dynamax here. He's going for the Togekiss. I wonder if the Snorlax maybe yawns into that slot, then Eduardo is going to have trouble with his Dynamax moves if his Togekiss is asleep.
Yeah, and that's going to be key for Graham to see if he can land those important yawns. Rotom does get knocked out by the Muddy Waters, so, you know, Graham finding these opportunities. Even though he didn't get the knockout earlier with the Max Geyser, he's still landing good damage. But Togekiss is able to start really causing some problems. This Max Airstream boosting its speed, making sure it moves before the Milotic and any following turns. And as you mentioned, Snorlax does yawn into the Togekiss, so this could really drastically reduce what this Dynamax can do. I don't think he wants to switch it out. He won't be able to, actually. He's down to his last two. So he's going to have to stay in there. And if he goes to sleep without doing enough beforehand, he could really be in trouble. There's going to be a lot of pressure to mix it up and keep this Togekiss dealing damage.
Yeah, the Milotic as well, getting that competitive boost there is going to be applying a lot of pressure with those Muddy Waters, of course, as long as they are able to connect. The thing as well with the Togekiss is even if it goes for something like a Max Starfall and brings that Mystery Terrain onto the field, it's a flying type Pokemon. It's going to go to sleep at the end of this turn regardless from that move. So it puts Eduardo into this awkward position where, like you said, Adam, he needs to be able to deal out big damage before that happens so that while it's asleep, Graham's not able to whittle through the rest of the team.
Yeah, I saw it. This is really going to mess with Graham's strategy. He switches the Milotic out, he gets the Incineroar back down, is a little bit worried about that Milotic taking too much damage. Obviously, it's going to get some Intimidates down, help out a little bit. Togekiss, though, already very, very pacey, landing its Max Airstream onto this Incineroar. Big damage there with the critical hit. Getting another speed boost, there's nothing to really stop this Togekiss from going fast. And here it goes. The Arcanine Will-O-Wisps the Togekiss, puts a status on it, and then that yawn, not gonna happen. This is such a Galaxy Brain play from Eduardo.
Amazing play there from Eduardo. I completely missed that text animation going off. I think I was having my little drink of water here. And that is just phenomenal from Eduardo. He knew that Togekiss was going to go to sleep. He needed it not to happen. It's a special attacker. It doesn't matter that it's burn. Its physical attack is null and void here. And it allows the Togekiss to go for a Nullamax move and still be a big offensive pressure here on the field. Amazing play by Eduardo.
Oh, it's just fantastic. And that's such a well thought out team building. Actually losing the Rotom in that turn meant he had access to the Will-O-Wisp with the Arcanine, and he was able to prevent the sleep. We've talked about it in this set that, hey, you really need to be able to deal with the sleep through something like Electric Terrain or the Misty Terrain. Well, Eduardo found like this third option that we hadn't been talking about, which was just putting a status on his own Pokemon. Absolutely fantastic play, and now Graham is absolutely up against it. This Togekiss has another turn to deal huge damage, and he's just going to be the only one doing things. The Arcanine says, you know what? You've got this, Togekiss.
Exactly. Going for the Protect as well. Saves itself from the Fake Out. It's the only target of that, which can't Fake Out Dynamax Pokemon. And if you were faked out and unprotected, Snorlax would be free to yawn that slot. But this way, Togekiss is able to deal some big damage with a critical hit as well. Really styling out here after that amazing play. Like, Eduardo just keeps running through it here. As Snorlax goes for the double edge into the Togekiss, it's able to take that really well, particularly thanks to it being in its Dynamax state. And thanks to the recoil, Snorlax is going to return back to its Pokeball, and things are looking a little bit dicey here for Graham. The momentum is definitely swept up into Eduardo's side.
Yeah, I mean, Eduardo honestly probably gets to close out the match in the final turn right now. As his Dynamax ends, he gets access to spread moves again, which means that there's no way to kind of try and protect around, calling a protect, making sure he attacks into that slot. This Milotic's still pretty healthy, but it's going to be a whole lot asked of it to try and go ahead. Don't forget, there's been speed boosts coming in from these just constant max airstreams coming through from the Togekiss when it was Dynamaxed. And just to make sure that the Milotic is taking damage every single turn, Arcanine's going to burn it.
Exactly, like you said, they're super speedy. There's not a lot Milotic can do here, particularly when critical hits are coming out from this Togekiss across both Pokemon. Really didn't need it to take down that Incineroar, but now it really is Milotic versus Eduardo's team, and all that sort of boulder of offensive pressure has really rolled here for Eduardo, and he's just sitting in such a strong position. Milotic does get Muddy Water. It does actually connect on both his Pokemon, so unless he wants to get every single accuracy drop in the book, it's going to be a little bit dicey for him. But Togekiss does actually drop its accuracy, so that could be a little bit problematic for Eduardo if the roll of the dice doesn't go his way.
Yeah, this is Graham's only way out. The Milotic is going to have to, you know, keep on getting those accuracy drops, avoiding attacks from the Togekiss. He's not too worried about the Arcanine, but if Togekiss lands an attack right now, I think it's pretty much absolutely over at this point. We also know the Togekiss is doing huge damage. The Arcanine's going to try its best, going to get as much damage down as it can. A little bit of flamethrower damage, not too much there. Togekiss, though, no problems with its accuracy, lands the Dazzling Gleam. Milotic starts a recover chain. But, you know, it's still going to take a little bit of damage at the end of the turn. This really is the only option for Graham. Try and stall it out so this Togekiss falls.
Yeah, it's great that he has the recover on there, because like you said, it keeps him in the game at this stage. Maybe if he goes for something like a Hypnosis onto that Arcanine, he can stop it dealing some chip damage, but then you have to hope that the Togekiss also misses its attack. So there really has to be a lot of good luck on Graham's side here in order for him to take this game 3. Flamethrower connects, obviously, and does a little bit of chip damage, and Togekiss just going, accuracy drop? What accuracy drop? Let me pick up the KO with a critical hit and seal up this game 3 for Eduardo.
Yeah, there's that Togekiss showing off what it can do, causing problems with those constant critical hits. Really, really exciting to see it land all of those. And a fantastic set wrapped up